Now, this is a personal issue for me. I really didn't like the fact that there are mechs in this story, even though one of the best characters in the show is a robot. To me, it feels like mechs were added to the story to make it feel like an anime. I mean, basically every anime just makes us accept some things as we're watching them. But still, mechs don't really feel like they belong in Yasuke. Even the show itself doesn't know what to make of them, with it explaining the mech's existence in a throwaway line.
Power armor mechs were the Mongols' advantage. It's how they conquered the Japanese settlements of Tsushima and Iki Islands. After we defeated them, we took this technological advancement for ourselves to strengthen our borders.
Having mechs in the story brings other questions to the forefront. First of all, how did the Mongols fail to conquer Japan if they're bringing mechs with them while the Japanese were fighting with swords, spears, and bows? And I guess magic. Second of all, why didn't Nobunaga have a few mechs with him at Honnoji when he was betrayed? Third of all, do all mechs run on magic or electricity? Because in this clip in one of the flashbacks in episode 2, you see some kind of device on the wall that looks like an electrical unit. Also, I guess the show is just going to skip over the fact that they're sentient robots that have literal jobs. Sure, let's just keep adding to the pile of stuff that this show needed to explain. Screw it, I'm done thinking about this. Next! Now it's time for some positivity. Yasuke brought together a talented cast, and even with the episode limit, you could tell the cast really brought their A game. One thing I must admit, I love the dub so much better than the sub.
What?
I actually think the show was made to be listened to in the English dub.
I think I'm gonna be sick!
Due to the Western influence radiating from the show. Lakeith Stanfield, who voiced Yasuke, knocked it out the park. Dan Donahue, who voiced Abraham, was also another standout. I should also commend William Christopher Stevens, Darren Criss, Julie Marcus, and Did Frampton, who voiced the mercenary group. If there was a couple of people who I could say weren't that good, it would be Maya Tanida and Amy Hill, who voiced Saki and the Daimyo respectively, but I think they mainly suffered from the episode limit more than anything else. I think they may have grown on me if I had more time with them. The rest of the cast is pretty good as well, but they could have reached legendary status if given enough time, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm only talking about the English dub cast here. I watched the show as well in sub, but it just didn't hit me the same way, if you know what I mean. I'm also not qualified to talk about the Japanese cast for obvious reasons. That's someone else's job. Yasuke's soundtrack is the very best part of the anime. Flying Lotus absolutely knocked it out the park here, and you can see that LaShawn Thomas put some extra care here to make sure the soundtrack was done right. You've actually been hearing the soundtrack throughout most of the video, and I actually wanted to highlight a few songs. Afrobeat vibe here is ever present and draped all over the anime. I would recommend this soundtrack to anyone, and it had me vibing through all 26 songs. However, I'm not the only fan of the soundtrack. On Spotify alone, the soundtrack has over 45 million plays, so you could say some people really love it. In my opinion, Yasuke had everything an anime needs to be great. Now, I'm not going to sit here in front like I know how to build an original show from the ground up into something that viewers are going to want to watch. There is so much work, effort, and coordination that goes into making a show of any kind that I can only imagine what it all even looks like. Even with the advantages afforded to Yasuke, the 6-episode limit was something the crew really struggled with. They were clearly ambitious and created an interesting world that could have been explored with spin-offs, movies, and even more seasons. But maybe I'm being too optimistic here. To give you an idea of what I mean, let's revisit what Nobunaga said about the Mongols invading Japan with the mechs.
Power armor mechs were the Mongols' advantage. It's how they conquered the Japanese settlements of Tsushima and Iki Islands. After we defeated them, we took this technological advancement for ourselves to strengthen our borders.
I low-key wanted to see how LaShawn Thomas and his crew would have made that invasion look like. Maybe think the opening scene of Ghost of Tsushima when the samurai charge down to the beach, except throw some mechs in there or something.
Oh, that'd be so awesome.
That'd be neat.
To get back on topic, I've mentioned this before, the show suffers from its plot being pulled in too many directions. Remember, the story of Yasuke is a relatively new story to tell. It is very unknown in the West, and the showrunner should have recognized this. If I was making season 1 of the show, I would have completely focused on Yasuke's time in the Oda, starting with Yasuke meeting Nobunaga at the Nanban trade port in 1579, eventually ending with the incident at Honnoji Temple in 1582. There is already plenty of material to work with the many flashbacks in the first 2 episodes. Plus, if you watch the show's ending, you see these glimpses into what Yasuke was doing during his time in the Oda clan, such as drinking with his lord, showing why Nobunaga trusted Yasuke to serve as Kaishakunin when he committed seppuku. Also, you see that Yasuke participated in a sumo tournament as well, so there are these moments that we weren't privy to in his time as an Oda samurai, and it's a shame that it just never came together. To be fair, I'm still working with the episode limit that the show's crew were given, but with an increased focus on Yasuke. For example, Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation takes its time to endear its main character Rudeus Greyrat to the viewers. While obviously Mushoku Tensei is not a whole new IP, so to speak, like Yasuke, it does suffer from even more challenges than Yasuke needed to overcome. In an oversaturated isekai anime market, Mushoku Tensei focused on a slower, more deliberate approach as it relied on the quality of its characters and creating the foundation of a fantastic world and story, instead of throwing the viewer into the action right away or relying on some gimmick to make it stand out. Mushoku Tensei, as you all know, captured my heart, and to this date, no anime has had such a profound effect on me, and I will put Mushoku Tensei up against most anime, especially any isekai someone wants to put on the table. Yasuke, in my opinion, should have taken this approach. Imagine watching Yasuke having to learn how to get used to living in Japan and becoming a samurai, all while dealing with the prejudice from other people in the Oda clan who only see him as a slave. We could also then see Yasuke fighting in his first battle and meeting Natsumaru, who can be someone he can identify with as they both struggle to earn their place in the Oda clan. While I would have dropped Natsumaru as a love interest for Yasuke, I definitely would have kept her as an Iga spy. Their love story just never felt right to me, and it felt too cliche. I really liked the fact that the showrunners decided to make Natsumaru a spy. I really liked that aspect of her character, and it can show Yasuke that everything's not all good in the clan. Remember, by the time Yasuke joins the Oda clan, a lot of the major hard work has already been done. Nobunaga has already taken over Mino, he fought the anti-Nobunaga coalition when the Azai betrayed him, he even fought the Takeda at the Battle of Nagashino. A lot of things have already happened, so when Yasuke joins the Oda clan, everything seems all rosy, Nobunaga's going to conquer the land, and then the incident at Honnoji happens. With the rosy picture that Yasuke has of the Oda clan, despite the clear, obvious discrimination he will face, the show can actually focus more on the incident at Honnoji Temple, ending the first season on a sour note where Yasuke has lost everything, but he still lives, leaving viewers wondering how Yasuke will deal with the traumatic events he just suffered. Also, I'm definitely shortening the time skip. Maybe I'd shorten it to a couple of years, which definitely would factor into my future plans. Okay, so this is the part where I was going to go really in depth into how I would have crafted Yasuke's story from basically start to finish. But this video is already long enough, and this was actually way harder than I thought it would be. I do have something of a rough draft together, but you don't care enough to see it, and I'm really too tired to fully flesh it out. So I'm just going to let it stay here on my computer as a forgotten treasure, and maybe one day I'll come back and finish what I started.